morning, welcome to Fatima's World. Thank you for liking, for sharing, for subscribing. Most importantly, like I say, thank you for talking back at me. You know, a lot of people have sent me messages inbox. Fatima, talk about abuse. They're always saying don't leave your marriage except you're battered and all of that. So finally, today I will be talking about domestic violence and abuse in relationship. Don't forget, Fatima's World is basically about homes, marriages, relationships, having better husbands, having godly wives, raising children, the family as bedrock of a sane society. So today, I would finally be talking about abuse in marriage and relationship. I have often said that the only reason a man or a woman should say goodbye to a relationship is if you're physically abused. Physically abused. Not when a man loses his voice or screams at you. Physically abused. The gender policy, says that if a man does as much as raise his voice against you, you've been abused. But you see, the truth is, we're Africans. Let's get practical. Sometimes even we raise our voices against our husband. So the only reason is if he physically abuses you. I keep saying that the only reason you should leave your marriage is that if there's a case of domestic violence. It's again. So we don't say, oh, he's abused me because he's doing, except there is a verbal, not just the verbal, but a physical violence. If you decide to leave at the slightest sign of conflict, there would be no need for matrimony. Matrimony is the coming together of two people raised by two different families, raised with two different family virtues and all of that. So there will be no need for matrimony if we cannot tolerate ourselves. There will be conflicts, oh yes, but you cannot take flight at the slightest fight. We have conflicts every day. I get into arguments with my husband. It doesn't mean I'm going to end my marriage. For me, it's the journey of forever. What's the difference between normal conflict and domestic violence? Conflict is part of every intimate relationship. There's no even friends, son, mother, daughter, mother, I've had reasons to, scold my son, scold my daughter. So conflict is inevitable. There's nothing that you can do about it. Conflict is part of every intimate relationship. That's just the way it is. That's why conflict resolution skills are important. Domestic violence, however, has no place in a healthy relationship. It has no place in a healthy relationship. Whether the couple, whether they are cohabitating together, whether they are engaged, or whether they are married, conflict is normal. Domestic violence, on the other hand, is not normal at all. It brings me to the question. In my own definition, what is domestic violence? Domestic violence is any kind of behavior that a person uses or threatens to use to control an intimate partner. I was watching a movie yesterday and, for me, when I started seeing the movie, it was like, why does this lady want to suddenly leave her marriage? Oh, her marriage is beautiful. The husband wakes up to make her meal. And, everybody had come to ask her, why are you leaving? She was bottled in. She didn't say nothing until she went to see a counselor. And she says to her husband, I need a divorce. We realized that the tool that the partner was using to control her was violence. He was always beating her. So she was unsafe. She felt threatened. She couldn't talk. There was no communication between the both of them. So the two key elements are threat and control. Domestic violence can take various forms. I have heard and seen people claim that their spouse is not abusive or violent towards them simply because they don't get physical. But let me be quick to tell you this, that abuse can come in various forms. I'll quickly point out some forms of abuse. Physical. That's some violent actions such as hitting, beating, pushing, kicking. In many cases, physical abuse becomes more free, and I accept it, and I don't speak out. I have just begun a process of degenerating, beating. It would get worse over time. The next time, because I didn't speak up, it'll be 2 slaps. Sexual abuse. It includes any sexual act that you force on your partner. I I know men who would. There was this story that somebody, sent to me and said, please, Fatima, I want you to talk about it. It's so sensitive. I can't even talk about it yet. I'm trying to see the best perspective to put it. A man's sexual orgy makes him bring in his friends to sleep with his wife. And I'm wondering, is this normal? What's wrong? Is this normal? For him, it's his sexual urge. But to the wife, it's an abuse, psychological abuse. It includes a wide range of behavior, such as intimidation, isolating the victim from friends, and family, controlling the victim. It makes the victim feel very guilty or crazy. And it makes you, the partner who is intimidating, begin to demand unreasonable things from your partner. I've seen situations where husbands will say to their wives, I don't want to see any friend in my house, not even their family. Again, I was seeing a movie, her father's friend came to marry her. He came with very lofty promises. Oh, I'm going to take you to school. I'll make sure this happens to you. And he came to marry her. Lo and behold, he's into child trafficking. That's what he does. He has like a baby factory. So a form of violence, the physical, the psychological one, is the one that makes you control, separates people from families, separates your wife or your husband from friends. That's totally wrong. Because once you start doing this, you begin to have and make unreasonable demands. Economic. Example includes limiting the victim's access to funds, especially to the family income, preventing the victim from working, or forcing the victim to work, destroying the victim's property, and making all the financial decisions. I've seen that severally. I know husbands who will say to their wives, I want you to sit at home and look after my children. I don't want you to work at all. Listen to me and listen carefully. A wife of no impact is a wife of no value. If your husband says to you, sit at home, take care of my children, don't work, do not listen. Do not listen. You can get a profession where you can at least give part of your time to your children. You can get a teaching profession. You can't tell him to set up a business, but do not listen. Because of eventualities, anything can happen at any point in time. If your husband says, oh, because you have done this, I will withhold funds from you. So what do? You begin to run as a wife of a rich man. You begin to look for help in all of the wrong places. Do not, for any reason, accept for any man to intimidate you. Neither should you allow any man to set a pace for your life and say, this is how I want you to. No, it has to be a personal decision. Both of you have to come together. So that's another form of abuse. I'm sure by now, some people will start to relate with these forms of abuse and violence, both men and women. I was telling somebody the other day, I said, we're always saying, how the men are abusing the women. I've seen cases where women abuse their husbands. I know men who will not raise their hands. Their wives will beat them silly. So both men and women experience abuse. It is not exclusive to a gender. We have cases of women who beat their husbands to stupor. Sadly, religion and the society that we live in, it has killed a lot of people. It will urge them to stay on in an abusive relationship. While the men are quick to leave, the women are made to still stay. Everything will be fine. It will get back to normal. They keep giving you fake promises. It usually doesn't get back to normal. I will not allow any pastor to tell me to tolerate a man who makes me unhappy all the time. It is a personal decision. How would I pay my children's fees? That's why I said ensure that you're working. Add value to your marriage. Have an impact. They're afraid that the abuser will become more violent if they try to leave. I know women will say, he beats me, I want to leave, but I'm scared. If I try it, he will beat me. Some fear that they will lose their children. I know men who's taking children forcefully from their mothers because, they didn't fall in line. Many believe that they cannot make it on their own. That is erroneous. You can make it. Everyone can make it. If you're a man in your husband's, if you're a woman in your husband's age, would you not fend for your family? You must ensure that you have a definitive means of livelihood. Some abused women believe that the abuse is their fault. They become so abused so much so that psychologically they say, maybe if I didn't used to talk too much, maybe my husband would not beat me. Maybe if I don't make up anymore, maybe my husband would understand. Maybe if I follow him to his church, maybe if I continue to allow his friends to use me. Feeling of guilt. You begin to take on the guilt, take on faults for no reason, justifying why you should stay on in an abusive relationship. They think that, oh, they'll stop the abuse if they start to act very differently. Some cannot even admit that they are abused. One is 100% sure. Take my word for it. Help is available for you and your children. There are organizations ready to help you. A lot of civil society organizations. Surprisingly, you will do better than you thought that you would. Abusers are deniers. They never believe it's their fault, no matter what happens. It is both dangerous for both parties. I know a man who used to beat his wife a lot. One day, he woke up and she was dead because he hit her head on the side of the bed. She left her little children. The main reason for her that she stayed. If you know me, you know I am against divorce. Fatima hates divorce. If it can be helped, I believe in restoration. But I will never employ any woman to stay put where she has been made a punching bag. Never. I will never let a woman stay where she's an emotional wreck. Never. When push comes to shove, I will tell you, assert yourself. Get out of that abusive marriage. You can start again. You can't make it again. Your life can't be better. Thank you so much. And stay with me this morning on Fatima's World. Do not forget the new order, the new normal. Mask up. COVID-19 is real. God bless you.